Benchwarmers, we're back on this early week fantasy episode because there is another Friday kickoff, fortunately and unfortunately. The reason being is that we're going to have to plan our transfers a lot more carefully now because these prices are rising and these players are being rotated even more. My name is Diego, and I'm being joined for this fantasy episode by the likes of Marco, Eric, and former Benchwarmers FC League champion, fantasy champion of 2019-2020, Nico. Guys, I'll keep it very blunt, very sweet, very short. How'd your weeks go? Marco, how'd you do?
Average. Literally. On the dot.
Oof.
Average.
Eric, how'd it go for you?
To be specific, I did 7 points above average.
7 points above average. Okay. And Nick, what did you hit for game week 11?
If Marco said average, then I was below average. So, yeah.
Yikes.
I actually forgot I changed my team around this weekend too. Just an FYI. I pulled an Eric.
So actually, you're in a pretty good spot. You got.
I think so.
You got some transfers banked in there. But anyway, we'll get to that. We're going to start off this episode by going over the Benchwarmers FC Fantasy League. We usually do that near the middle of the episode, but we're going to change things up a bit and make sure that people know where they stand. And before we get to the top three standings, just to remind you guys where you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts by searching Benchwarmers FC. And Eric, they can find us on social media.
Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Make sure to give us a follow, a comment, a like. Let us know what you want to see in future episodes. And here, also catch all our Tech Ball content on there. Benchwarmers FC 1.
And Marco, they can watch all of our recordings if they like to see us in the virtual space.
They can watch us on YouTube at Benchwarmers FC TV.
And you can also write to us, bench@benchwarmersfc.com. So the top three, there's not much moving as far as number one, and we kind of have to recognize it because Matt, with his team in Kepa We Trust, is putting a lot of faith in Kepa, it looks like, because he dropped 98 points on the rest of the league, and he's a commanding lead with 733 total. Second place, we have a mover. Kieran has moved into second place with his team Liverpool. And Pedro Files El Nino, 75 points, staying in third. There were a couple movers. We had Dimitri, who was in the top three last week. He got bumped down to fourth. And I find myself in seventh, Nick in ninth, Eric in 10th place, Josue 13th. We're checking in on the Gat versus Marco head-to-head. Gat is right now he's sitting in 16th place with a total of 599 points. Eddie on the bench as well. He's just below him on 18th. And then just a tiny bit lower,
Keep on scrolling.
We got It Got Messy, Let's Party. Marco sitting in 24th. I know someone was giving me a hard time for trying to be positive and reminding everyone that it's a marathon. So I'm not going to say that this time. I'm going to say that you have to start sprinting hard for these points, because this is now the moment where we will not have a single break for the next 21 days. We're going to get 6 match weeks shoved right into our faces between now and Christmas time. We're going to see midweek games. We're going to see blank game weeks. We're going to see double game weeks. It's going to be wild. So just to prepare and getting onto the usual notes and making sure that you guys know who to look out for, just to start with the Benchwarmers Club and run through that really quick. We always note the top 6, and those are the players that stay on their team's bench for the full 90 minutes. We got Bernardo Silva for City, Minamino for Liverpool, Joe Willock for Arsenal, Jorginho for Chelsea, Nemanja Matic for United, and Gareth Bale for Spurs, all staying on the bench, keeping it warm for the full 90 minutes. Going into the watch list, guys, was there anyone that you feel like you may need to get your hands on for Game Week 12? Eric, who are you looking at for your team, since you're mentioning that you did skip some of those edits and transfers, but you accidentally put yourself in a good spot. So who are you looking at to maybe bring in for this week? One name.
I'm thinking about dropping Vardy and bringing on Kane. Kind of hard not to.
Oof, bringing in Harry Kane. Yes, it's very hard not to count him out. And I have a note on that as far as owning either Son, Kane, or both. Marco, I know you have a bit of a grievance with Zaha. You don't have to repeat it here. You were saying it off recording. After that happening, though, who are you looking to bring back into your team?
I have no idea. I'm actually considering taking a hit and making 2 changes.
Okay.
As well,
We'll
bro.
keep
As
we'll
well.
keep that shrouded in secrecy. I like that. Nico, who are you looking at for your team? You said you did a little bit below average.
So it's mine is, yo.
You did a little bit below average. Who are you looking to put into your team, Nick, to make the difference for Gameweek 12?
Honestly, I kind of like my team where it's at right now. Maybe like if I were to do maybe some changes, maybe drop Jota for like maybe Chelsea attack or maybe a Pulisic since he's been starting to play, or maybe a Lamptey to a double Chelsea defense like I said last week. But yeah, that's it. I'm liking my team.
That's good. That's always a good position to be in. And just to go over the names that we're putting onto the watch list for this week, he's been on it and off it and on it and off it again. Jack Grealish missing this game for Game Week 11 was huge because I feel like a lot of managers decided to just put him on the hook and switch him out for someone else premium. Jack Grealish can still come back and do some damage. So he's someone that's worth keeping an eye on for the next few weeks. Harry Kane back in again on the watch list. Harry Kane, which is someone that Eric is probably going to try to pounce on early. It just looks like he's not giving up as far as scoring and producing the fantasy asset points. Another one that's a bit frustrating, Wilfred Zaha back again on the watch list. We were talking about him just off recording. He dropped an 18-pointer for Game Week 11, and his last 4 game weeks were scores of 1, 5, 0, and 0 because of his COVID positive test. A lot of managers were caught by surprise because he had a 25% chance of playing. He decided to play the entire 90 minutes, put down 2 goals and an assist, and left everyone frustrated and angry. Another one that's actually coming back from injury instead of staying on it, Trent Alexander-Arnold. He featured today during midweek for his Champions League match a little bit, and it looks like he might start coming back into the team. He's someone just to keep an eye on. I don't know about pouncing on him just yet because he is very expensive for a defender, and a lot of managers seem to be riding this wave of heavy-duty midfield. Danny Ings, another name on the watch list. Danny Ings came back into the side for a second-half cameo, helped his team get the win. Danny Ings reminding us that he's still a very experienced forward, and a striker like that is going to be invaluable for your team, especially considering the fact that he's still on penalties. John Stones, a bit of a differential, 4.8 million. John Stones, back-to-back 90-minute games. If you want a cheap way to get into this Man City defense, we had mentioned in the recording for this week that even though they may not be scoring as many goals as expected, they're starting to pick up the pace and things are starting to tick. So a lot of those cogs are falling right into the places where they need to be. And for someone that can benefit from that, Raheem Sterling, 11.5, he could have done a bit more. Kevin De Bruyne shining him out a little bit for this game against Fulham, where they won 2-0. But Raheem Sterling could be someone that you could consider. One thing that we tried last week, and I'm bringing it back again this week, looking at the returns for names that we had on our watch list. James Ward-Prowse rewarding anyone who picked him up with a cheeky little assist. I think he's someone that's worth considering. Even if you don't pick him up, it's worth considering a Southampton defender for, and I'll make a case for that later on. Mahrez, unfortunately, someone that I jumped on. I know Marco picked him up as well. Mahrez left, frustrating managers for the entire 90 minutes. It looked like the whole City team just collectively decided in the tunnel, we're just going to mess up every single play that Mahrez tries to come up with so he doesn't score any points. Who are we dropping off the watch list really quickly? Antonio, Cavani, and Ziyech are all out because they are injured. So due to injury, I would not consider any of those players. And Hector Bellerin, even though he looked pretty good in the first 4 or 5 game weeks, as far as a defensive side, he's someone to kind of stay away from for the time being. And many other people would even agree that probably a lot of that Arsenal squad just don't look like good investments moving forward. Before we get to a Game Week 11 notes, guys, I want to know from each of you if you have one question, and we're going to try to maybe troubleshoot that a little bit. So I started with Eric last time. I'll start with Nick this time. Nick, one question that you have moving forward, looking at your team, looking at how you're set up. I know you said you're pretty confident, you're pretty comfortable with what you're looking at. But if there's something that you're probably questioning that maybe we can go over for our listeners on this episode, what would it be?
Why isn't Brewster scoring? That's my question.
I mean, I
4.5 mils scoring every game, at least 2 goals every game for 4.5.
I can't answer that for you. Who else do you have? How about this? Who else do you have as your forward line?
Currently, I had this past weekend I had DCL, Kane, and I guess Brewster, but he was on the bench. But now I transferred out Calvert-Lewin for Calum Wilson.
Calum Wilson, that's a huge shout. Calum Wilson was, I believe the stat was involved in 60% or something like that of all of Newcastle's goals for this season, which is ridiculous considering that he's a pickup that they made over the summer. Along with his buddy Ryan Fraser from Bournemouth, it looks like Calum Wilson could be the person to put the goals back into the Newcastle side. Is he someone that you want to jump on early? Well, Nick already made that choice, and it looks like he's going to either roll the dice on some returns pretty quickly. He has some pretty decent fixtures, at least in the next 3 game weeks, leading up to the heavy rotations. He might be someone that other managers might look forward to putting on their teams, only because he's not on a team that has a congested fixture list. So while other teams are rotating their forwards, playing and managing 60 minutes here, 30 minutes there, we know at least we have guaranteed 90-minute starting forward. So Marco, one question for your team, looking at who you got, what do you got for us?
My only question is what to do with all my defenders that are not playing.
My man is
what's it do with your whole team?
That is, I just need to make it to January so I can get rid of all of them. Literally, that is my plan.
Well, you did mention cheap defenders, and so I'll skip into the one of the notes for this game week. For this game week 12, and a lot of, I guess, one of the strategies that is coming out right now is to start to hop on the very cheap defenders. So anyone that's sub 4.5 million, these are defenders which you don't really expect them to get you a ridiculous amount of points, but they enable you to spread out your cash for the rest of your team. And if you pick them on the correct squads, they may actually come up with some goals for you. So what I had mentioned earlier, James Ward-Prowse on Southampton, we saw Yannick Westergard heading another goal in from a direct James Ward-Prowse corner kick. The same thing is happening with Kurt Zouma over at Chelsea. Mason Mount and Hakim Ziyech whipping those balls in from the corner kicks, and Zouma is eating those up. I believe he's on 4 or 5 goals for the season already. Yannick Westergard is not too far behind. Of course, we would want defenders that would get you clean sheets first, but if they're going to give you a few goals, it might be worth considering. So I'll put out some names so you could just munch on that for the rest of the week, Marco. Maybe think on it a little bit. Some of the names here that stick out, we have Bednarek from Southampton, 4.5 million. Balbuena from West Ham, 4.4 million. Walker Peters went up this week, so he's at 4.6, another Southampton defender. And Masuaku from West Ham, 4.5. And Alioski from Leeds. We saw, I don't know if you guys saw that cheeky press conference that Bielsa had where he revealed his entire starting 11, which I thought was hilarious. One of the things that he did confirm, though, which helps a lot of fantasy managers, is that it looks like Alioski is going to stay in that fullback position, and it's going to allow for Dallas to keep pushing forward out of position, which may get him into the goals and the assists moving forward. That's, I guess, your question for the defense, Marco. You may want to switch into one of those guys. It could be worth taking a hit because, for the upcoming game weeks, we want to make sure that there's a decent bench that's waiting to be rotated in case someone is sat out. Eric, you're looking at your team. I can see you scratching your chin hairs. I can see you turning the wheels in your head. What question you got for your fantasy team going into game week 12?
So it's actually kind of piggybacking off what you were just saying, the defenders. I have Chilwell, who's at 6.0. I'm debating whether to drop him for Zuma, who is, I think, is 5.6 cheaper. Or do I drop DCL and bring in Calum Wilson? Excuse me. Leaving 2.5 in the bank for next week to transfer.
That's going to be, I think Nick is going to be a little bit annoyed.
Yeah,
that
stop copying me, bro. Why copying me?
I was gonna pick somebody else, but then you mentioned Calum Wilson.
I believe.
It looks like you do have. That's a pretty decent decision to make. It's pretty difficult, actually, more than decent. One of the things that people are looking at is Chilwell and James have turned out to be this season's budget Trent and Robertson, so they're not as expensive. Again, the returns aren't as prolific, but they are going forward. They have a couple of assists already to their names. They have a couple of clean sheets. They're looking very solid at the back. So even doing better than Zuma, Reece James, I believe he's at 5.3 million still, or 5.2. It looks like he might be another possibility, which Nico unfortunately was also saying that he could double up on Chelsea defense. So you're copying him on two fronts, sadly. But you can go either way. You can solidify your defense for the next few weeks, or if you are looking forward to using a wild card, if you still have it, then maybe going for a 3-week punt on Calum Wilson, someone like Calum Wilson, or even Danny Ings, which I would consider personally. That's someone that, you know what, just whatever, you're going to switch out your players anyway. You're in a good spot. You have a free transfer or even two. Just put him in there and see how he does for the next few weeks. One of the last things here on our Game Week 12 notes, KDB, Salah, and Bruno. These are now the top scoring, or at least the most popular choices for midfield. We were just talking about the top four for the midfield. The highest 4 scoring midfielders in the game right now are in that order, specifically Son, Salah, Bruno, and Zaha. Being a little bit of a troll there, with Jack Grealish following not too far behind, I believe 1 point less than Zaha, so that kept them out of the top 4. But there are a lot of, I guess, considerations for stacking up in your midfield and making sure that you have at least a midfield line of KDB, Son, Salah, and Bruno, and maybe putting in some bench fodder for the 5th slot, or going for a mid-range priced midfielder to fill that in. It could be the wave going forward, and these are players that are honestly very consistent no matter who they play. So there's not much that you could lose there. One very, very, I guess, I would say a humble suggestion: Son and Kane. If you don't have Son, if you don't have Kane, if you don't have both, get at least one of them into your team. We just saw Spurs go through what we thought was going to be the most difficult period in this early part of the season, and they passed it almost easily. We saw Son and Kane putting up double digits across the last 3 game weeks, and I think that kind of solidifies the fact that they are going to be maybe even season owners. They could be players that you keep on your team for the entirety of this fantasy season, and it's only going to let them grow. Son officially being the first midfielder to hit 100 points last week. And some punts just to end the notes for Game Week 12. I have some names here. Diaz from Man City, a punt on your defensive line. Zaha, if you want to try to get him in, even though he doesn't have very favorable fixtures in the next 3 or 4. And then as the forward line, I'm very much a fan of this, considering it myself. One of either Ings or Wilson as a punt for your forward line. So we do have some confirmations for a blank game week, and the only 2 teams right now, unfortunately, are West Ham and West Brom. They're going to blank in game week 18, and they're going to have a double game week in the following one. So that means game week 19, It's going to be a double game week for West Ham and West Brom players. Not the best teams that we want to go look at, but we are also probably also looking at further fixtures being postponed and rearranged into that double game week so we can accommodate, so the league can accommodate. So that's something to look out for, I believe, starting now. If you don't have your wild card, if you do, you're actually in a pretty good spot because you can use that around game week 16 or 17, set yourself up for the double, and you'll be cruising into January, hopefully on a high. So captain choices, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you one by one. Nick, who are you going to put the armband on for this week?
Oh, man. I think right now I have it on Jota because Salah played the full game today. And I think Jota will start, and they play Fulham away. And then a little punt, I guess you can say, is Wilson and West Brom at home. So I'm looking at those two.
You saying Salah going to play this weekend?
He might not.
He played the full game today.
Klopp let him play the full 90.
400, basically, because they added 8 more. Don't copy me, bro.
Yeah, I guess we'll come back to Eric really quick. Marco, I guess just to help you guys out, one of the first captain choices I have for this week, or that we have for our listeners, Salah versus Fulham away. Fulham has been a team that's been very leaky on goals. Their defense hasn't been that spectacular as of late. And Salah scoring in the very first minute in his game today and making a run out. Klopp did come out to say that he looked fit, that he looked like he could take the 90 minutes, and he didn't see a reason to sub him off. So he just let him play. He let him roam. This could, however, be some sort of a clue as to whether or not Klopp is going to bench him for this weekend, especially looking at it as far as an easy fixture on paper. Number 2 choice, I would actually put it on Vardy. Even though Vardy hasn't been that great at home, he further continued the conspiracy theory that he does better away by scoring last weekend during his game. So Vardy at home, it looks like it could be a possibility for your second captain choice. And the third captain choice is Heung-min Son, Crystal Palace away. Son and Kane, I think, no matter what now, if you have to fall back on someone, if you don't have a specific player that has an easy fixture, so to speak, then one of those two guys would suffice. Before I give some of I have only 2 differentials for this week. Marco, who are you looking to put the armband on for this game week 12?
So, thinking about it, it's not who I want to jinx. Because as of lately, every time I captain somebody, they fuck me over. So, Who do I want to jinx so that they don't give me points? I might do Jota just to fuck with Nico.
And then I'll just switch it to Wilson.
Exactly.
And then once you say you're gonna jinx Wilson, I'm gonna switch it back to Jota. So.
I don't have Wilson, so I can't jinx him. So you're free there. I'm not
mind games. Mind games. Eric, who are you looking at for captaincy game week 12?
I'm gonna gamble it and put it on Salah. If he doesn't play, have my vice captaincy on Heung-min Son.
That's solid.
Yo. Quote me on this. Kane or Son will not assist or score this weekend against Palace.
My vice captaincy to
Call me on this. Clip it, Marco. Kane and Son will not. They'll get 2 points each. Watch.
Wow.
That's bold.
Watch.
Well, you have to be back next weekend to talk about it.
That is bold. 2 of the differential options that I'll put on to this episode just so we can wrap it up for you guys. Ings as a differential versus Sheffield. Sheffield haven't been conceding many goals, but with Ings on penalties and Ings coming back into the side, I think it's worth, if you don't have any of the other premiums, if you haven't fit them into your squad yet, if you have long-term plans as far as your transfers, Ings could be someone to bring in and keep him on your team. The other one, a differential, which I don't expect him to do well. We were talking about this a little bit. Timo Werner for Chelsea. We mentioned him on our podcast episode yesterday. So if you haven't caught that, make sure you give it a listen. Timo Werner on this Chelsea side, he just looks like he's been getting unlucky with his finishes. It has to come to a point where push comes to shove and he starts to put the ball in the back of the net. So against an Everton side that has looked pretty sloppy defensively, And not to put any blame on any names, but there is a specific goalkeeper for that team that has been not doing as great. And there was someone here on the podcast who didn't believe so and was confused as to why we were pointing out Pickford with his tiny arms. But that's beyond the case. It looks like Timo Werner versus Everton could be a nice little differential pick for the captaincy. Guys, I wish you guys luck.
I was messing around with Diego, and I told him that I would pick Pickford, even though I don't have him. I would pick Pickford over De Gea any time of the week until week 10. But we're past week 10, so it's an open season.
It doesn't surprise me.
It was an earlier recording when Everton was still doing okay.
So it's one of those typical Marcos.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wrong. I like to make people laugh. Or laugh at me, one of the two. It's basically the same thing.
That will
be laughing at the end of the season. So.
Huh?
Oh.
Gat will be laughing at the end of the season. I got my money on Gat. Oh, well.
Yo, honestly, I'm gonna put some money on Gat too, bro.
Yeah.
I would too.
Bro, what's the wager? Do you guys finally decide?
No, I haven't hit him up yet.
Nah.
The wager will come though. The wager will come. It will come. It will come by Christmas time, which reminds me, and just making sure that we start to advise everyone that is listening and following and playing along with us, which we really appreciate. The Fantasy League for Benchwarmers FC, we will be closing it to new entries and new managers by the midway point. So after game week 19, the game itself, or at least our private league, will be closed. And the next following 5 or 6 weeks are the ones remaining for you to come in and lock in your teams. The reason being is we want to keep it fair to everyone, and the ones that have been sticking around since the beginning, to make sure that we don't have any last minute 1,000 or 2,000 pointer managers coming in, swooping in when everyone's been, I guess, plugging away at the top spots. That's the reason why we've made it. That's the decision that we're going to stick to. And again, just a reminder, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
It is a sprint.
Marco.
Thank you everyone for listening. My name is Diego. I've been joined tonight by Marco, Nick, and Eric, sharing us all of their fantasy picks and their teams. Again, make sure that you make your transfers and your team selections early. This week, there is a deadline on Friday by 1:30 p.m. Eastern. My name is Diego for the last. This is the Benchwarmers. We are the bench with a voice, where the bench is always warm. Peace, everyone.